Welcome to the most forward-thinking, inspirational podcast in this reality. The show designed to challenge everything we've been taught. If you've ever felt there had to be more to life, more to existence, then you're listening to the right podcast. Time to open your mind and dive in. This is the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast.
And here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast. Today, we're doing something very different. We are actually recording this show live on Instagram. So we're not recording it live. We are live right now on Instagram. But the show itself isn't live because it's a podcast. So we're kind of figuring out how this works. I don't know. But one of the cool things is we've never actually gone live before. So this whole pressing the live button on Instagram. And hello to everybody who's joined. We've got a few people in right now. That's kind of funny. Kind of fun. Quite the experience. Today's episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about conspiracy, believe it or not. How when this show started, when we got underway, there was and also I apologize to the people watching the show. I don't know what the sound is like over there, simply because we haven't done this before. So if you're hearing something good, if you're not, I apologize. But to those listening to the show, we started off as a quote-unquote conspiracy free thought podcast. There were so many topics that we covered that were, I would say, controversial at the time. And this is, I don't even know when we started. I want to say 2017. To sort of go over everything that's taken place since 2017 and now, it's kind of interesting because there are some people that have said no to coming on the show. They're like, I don't want to be associated with that mentality. And I mean, it kind of hurt. It kind of hurt, kind of doesn't hurt. It's certainly an opportunity for myself and for everybody involved to sort of see what the dynamics of what people are willing to do is. I look back at it now, and if I were to have these guests, if I were to ask these guests to come back, the ones that said no to us, I would wonder if they would say yes. Because at the end of the day, right now, where we are and where we started is really all about how can we, or how can I help you? How can we help? How can we all collectively come to a point where there's this general acceptance of self, there's this general enjoyment of the ability to ask the weird question, to do the weird thing, to break the norm, to break tradition. For me, it's a wild spot. It's a wild observational spot, and I don't have the ability to properly articulate the majority of the time, which is pretty fascinating. Considering over 300 episodes in, I articulate kind of as well as I can, even though some people will say that most of my episodes are one run-on sentence. I'm one of those people because sometimes when I get passionate or animated, I tend to create run-on sentences. I look at it, though, and I think everything's changing. Everything's changing so rapidly. Everything is becoming more and more in the open. And the more it becomes in the open, kind of the less the bad guy we are, even though we wore that hat well. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is when you step into purpose, you have the ability to be the villain in somebody else's story and not have it bother you. And I love that. I love the idea that you can break free from the ideologies of other people. You can break free from the prison that you put your own mind in by believing in the thoughts of other people. And when you truly dissect that, the thoughts of other people as you perceive them are really just you thinking about yourself through their eyes. It's you beating yourself up. It's all internal. Now, again, to get introspective on that, you can reflect all the way to high heaven about anything that you envision. The numbers are coming up. You guys are watching nicely. I'm enjoying watching this stream pick up. So hello to everybody that's watching right now. This is probably going to be a choppy episode because I am focusing on a lot of things here. But I'm also one of those people that doesn't like to edit too much. So you're not going to see too many chops in here. We're just going to leave it all in. We're going to leave it all in. We're going to fly with it. Getting back to where I was talking earlier, we find ourselves in a position right now where every single thing that we once thought or that we were allowed to think, or maybe that it was just me thinking and perceiving, as the bad guy, as the villain, as the one that was willing to test and push and try the norms. We find ourselves in a position where it's almost like it's come full circle. And I'd like to say that I want to be able to create moving forward with the air of positivity and the connotation of perhaps a conspiracy theory, because that again was a shadow banned hashtag, right? I mean, I remember in the thick of COVID when they were talking about how anyone who's a critical thinker or thinks for themselves is literally posing a danger to society. Thinking for yourself is causing trauma in the world. I recently posted something on my Facebook account about a hospital room. The waiting room in the hospital, talking about how healthy eating habits. Instead of butter, consider eating canola oil or a bunch of other seed oils. And it's so funny because the more you open your eyes to a lot of the scenario, a lot of the situation that you're in, the more you open your eyes, the more you see it, the more you realize that you've more than likely been tricked since birth. And there's another saying too that says, it's easier to fool a man than ever convince them they've been fooled in the first place. And if you can back out of any ideology, another saying that really resonates with a lot of people is stand for something or fall for everything. And when you adapt that ideology, I used to love that saying, but when you adapt that ideology, everything that you stand for then becomes unquestionable inside your own mind. I firmly believe that if you have the ability to question even your deepest beliefs, then you've essentially set yourself free. And that's really cool because you're no longer a prisoner to what you believe things need to be. And since at the end of the day, you are your own prison guard, you are your own gatekeeper. You are the reason that you're elated or upset with your life. You're the reason. We're taught to point the finger elsewhere. We're taught to eat a lot of bread and not a lot of meat. We're taught to do all these things. We're taught to stay out of the sun. We're taught to wear running shoes and sunglasses to protect our feet and eyes and take us away from sun gazing and grounding. Every single thing that we're taught is a flip. It's a reverse. And again, 6 years ago when we started talking about this, we were crazy. We were the crazy ones. But now, so much more of it is coming out. So much more of it is being mentioned. So much more of it is being talked about in the mainstream. And it's nice to see. It's nice to see how people are overcoming their own mindset and expanding their own ability to create something a little more fun. I don't know where it's going to go or what it's going to lead to, but I do think that if we're looking at, say, a 100th monkey situation or scenario, then we've passed it. And it can't be undone. Carol, I see you. It's nice to have you with us as well. I would accept your request, but it's going to throw off kind of what I'm doing over here because we are recording a live episode. But one day that'd be fun. It'd be fun to have some people in here talking. I think we can connect it so that you guys can be heard. Something I'll definitely have to try out a little bit later on. The 100th monkey scenario in this situation is indicative of you being witness to more transparency. You're seeing things different. You're connecting with different people. From your perspective, things are changing. I'm saying you because you're a viewer of this episode. You're a listener of this podcast. You're a subscriber to the idea that we are not supposed to be prisoners in our own mind, in our own meat suit. And it's your perspective that is changing. It's what you're seeing more and more. You're seeing more people talk about it. You're seeing more events being mentioned, more accounts, I guess, just expanding on it. And then again, just like any other good old algorithm, the people that don't want to believe it won't. They're going to see the fear, the hate, the stuff. Who was I watching? I was watching a comedian or somebody talk about Trump, for example. And Trump is one of those polarizing characters. The further into the rabbit holes you go, you realize that, liberal left, conservative right, right-wing, left-wing, they're both parts of the same bird. So politics as a whole, if you're going to waste your energy on politics, is not fruitful. But observing it and understanding it and comprehending it and seeing what it's all about and understanding how you have to navigate yourself based on what you're being shown is truthful. Morgan Freeman said, or Denzel Washington, said, you either watch the news and you're misinformed, or you don't watch the news and you're uninformed. And that's true. Because if you watch the news or if you pay attention to what the media is pushing out at you, you can sort of see the agenda that they're trying to create. If you don't watch the news, you don't understand. If you believe the news, you're convoluted. But at the same time, with regards to the conspiracy that we talked about earlier, every single person that's watching or believing in a conspiracy, here's the thing. This world, this realm, this reality, wherever we are, whatever we're doing here, I firmly believe that we have this idea that the world runs on money, but the powers that be invented money. They don't really need it. The idea of money is really indicative of you not having it. So taxation and this, that, and the other thing. As well, if you're getting taxed through the nose, it's because you aren't supposed to have the money. Because if you don't have the money, then you're going to work for more money. And the more time you spend working for pursuing and chasing money, the less time you understand, or the less time you get for yourself to understand who and what and why you are here. It's part of the game. It's part of the ritual as to who and what and where we are. It's one of those things where people are like, well, you need money to live. Absolutely. But if you focus on money, you'll never have enough. You'll never be happy. You'll never be whatever it is. If you focus on doing a good job, if you focus on creating, if you focus on your passion, if you focus on you, the game changes. And again, the money comes in. At the same time, things like taxation and all this sort of stuff. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually, you know what? Let's just see if I can press this button right here.
Disclaimer. If you're going to soundbite any of this podcast, you must soundbite it in its entirety for consistency and context.
Those watching the show didn't see that, but that is our disclaimer. So what I'm about to say is taxation is suggested. And if it's suggested, then there are ways around it. Now, they put the fear of God in you to do this, that, and the other thing, and they're going to take away this, that, and the other thing. They're going to screw you over, especially in Canada. We've got that new Bill C-16 or whatever it was that passed through. That's small business is 66% capital gains, et cetera, et cetera. And what that means is, you spend your entire life building a business in Canada, and if you ever go to sell it, your capital gains is 66% tax. So you're just going to give more than half of it to the government. Unless you don't, unless you find a way around it. And if you do find a way around it, here's the funny thing about this world, as we were talking about earlier, they advertise everything being ass backwards. if you try to find your way around it, if you try to do something about it, you're already of the belief that you're a criminal, because they say that if you don't pay your taxes, then you're a criminal. So you already are, trying to do the good thing and the right thing. And the entirety of the system is playing you against yourself. They want the best of humanity to keep being the best of humanity. And if you do that, then you allow them to win. Again, this isn't a negative knock towards the government or fear mongering or any of that sort of stuff. These are the rules in which we play this game. This is how it is. If you don't want to get wet, don't go in the water, right? Now, we're here. If you don't want to pay taxes, figure it out. And this is what I tell everybody. If you are trying to see what you're capable of and what you can do, we are literally only left with what we've been told. So if you sit there with, say your tax bill for the end of the year is, I don't know, arbitrarily $30,000. This is what you have to pay. Keep your tax bill separate. Just put it in an account somewhere else, so when push comes to absolute shove, you can just give it to them. And in the interim, do everything in your absolute power to understand what you can do and how you can manipulate the very system that's trying to put the fear of God into you. They want you to be afraid. They want you to think that you're going to jail if you don't pay your bills. Get this. Here's how taxation works in Canada. You file a report and you tell them what you spent and you do all this sort of shit. You do a bunch of paperwork, you submit it, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares. But if you don't do that, then there runs the opportunity or the risk that somebody's going to check you out. So if, for example, you decide not to pay taxes for a very long time and you tell the government to go F themselves and you're not a pliable or malleable or educated individual in this journey, their threat is, okay, if you don't want to give us the money we believe that you owe us, we're going to go ahead and give you a place to live, and we're going to give you 3 square meals a day, and we're going to give you purpose in some facet. That's not how people look at it. They look at it, they're taking my freedoms, they're taking this, they're taking that. In other words, if I don't pay you whatever it is, the $30,000 that you think I owe you, well, we're going to put you in jail. In other words, it's going to cost us money to punish you. And at the end of it, you still owe the money, right? It's all fear mongering. So like I say, if you owe 30,000, we're just throwing this number out there arbitrarily. Make sure you've got the money in the account somewhere, and then challenge them at every possible step and see what you can get away with. See what they're willing to do and what they're willing to bend on. Because if you're not in fear when dealing with the IRS or the CRA or whatever, it's an entirely different ballgame. They often push you around under the guise of fear. Again, not a knock on the government. This is just the way it is. So when we're in here, when we understand this, when we comprehend this, then we can navigate it properly. I said, if you don't want to get wet, don't go in the water. Well, there's a thing called a dry suit. If you really want to get in the water and you don't want to get wet, you can put a dry suit on and stay essentially dry while you're in the water. Another thing you can do is get on a boat. And people will say, well, being on a boat isn't being in the water. Well, theoretically it is. You're on the water. You're enjoying the water. You're part and parcel with the water. But you're bending the rules. If you need to cross the water and you don't want to get wet, well, there's a boat. There's a bridge. There's a hydrofoil. There's a million ways. You can stand on the back of a alligator if you're a scorpion. But just because you're a scorpion doesn't mean you won't sting it. Doesn't mean you won't drown. Because we got to do what we got to do. This world exists for us to become a better version of ourselves. This world exists for us to sharpen our teeth at every possible curve. The challenges that we face are mandatory challenges to be faced to understand and comprehend what it is that we're capable of. The only way you're ever going to know what you're capable of is if you overcome all of the things that you're afraid to do. And here's the beautiful thing. The things that you're afraid to do, literally afraid to do, I don't mean like I'm going to go swim naked with the sharks in a chum-filled water, because that's just stupid. I'm talking about afraid to try the food, afraid to do this, afraid to do that, afraid to make a move on that girl, afraid to say to the woman that you love, I love you. All the things that we're afraid to do, that's where the life is lived. That's where the power is. That's where the whole purpose and the whole meaning of life is. Financially is another one too, because financial is one of those things that keeps us all trapped. Right? I can't do this. I can't afford to do that because when I was younger, I racked up credit card debts, or now I've got credit card debt, and every penny I have goes towards credit card debt. And The cost of living is going through the roof. I can't do this. I can't do that. There's a lot of people out there living very, very stressful, very, very 9 to 5, very stressed out. That leaves you the opportunity to be like, I'm not going to be afraid of this. I'm going to step into purpose. I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to do something. I'm going to figure out how to do something, right? And then there's that voice in our head that says, I can't do that. But for you to know that you want to do something means it's already been done. It means all you have to do is figure out who did it and find out what they've done. Emulate them, learn about them. Those people are everywhere on social media. You can find any answer you want. You're a fully capable and amazing human being living through an experience. And however you choose to talk to yourself inside your own head is essentially the result you're going to get. I think I can. I know I can. Maybe I can. All of these things, they all mean something. When you push yourself, you achieve things. When you push through boundaries and fear markers, you achieve things. Those fear markers exist, therefore, to make you a better version of you. The world that we're fighting right now exists to make us comprehend ourselves a little bit better. The word conspiracy theory was such a derogatory term to make those who were starting to wake up afraid that what they were doing was wrong. The further into that rabbit hole you go, the more you understand and comprehend that it was all intentional. And it's not necessarily them, because if you really, really dig down into the big, deep, dark rabbit holes of everything, you do come to a realization that it's you. It's always been you all along. Therefore, if it's always you, if it's always going to be you, the only person that can actually be pulling the strings at the top of the chain is you. And when we, like I said earlier, when we remove our belief system to the point where I can now be open to everything as opposed to standing firmly on something, you can start to expand past your physical body, past your physical being, past what you believe to be your imprisonment in the meat suit. You aren't a human being inside this reality. The entirety of the reality is you. It's your reality. It's your version. It's your sandbox. It's your game. The whole thing. And there's a huge flip-flop, like I said when I was talking earlier. This starts off with us doing our best to grow, attempt, learn, see, comprehend. And all we've been able to do in that vein is what the schooling system taught us to do. And once we get beyond that, once we get beyond the fact that we've been programmed from birth, television programming, educational programming, all of this sort of stuff. Once you understand that you've been programmed, you can see it. You can take the information that you've got and you can change. You can change yourself. You can change your path, your journey. You can change everything. I, for example, at one point was a heavy alcoholic, high functioning alcoholic, addicted to all the drugs, all the fancy designer drugs. Loved that stuff. It's crazy. High ticket sales, whole 9 yards. Giant piece of shit to myself. A lot of people will say, oh, you were a great person to me. You were kind. You were this, you were that. For me, there was a point in time where I didn't believe in myself. I didn't love myself for whatever reason. And that is what I expelled. I projected that out there. And then when I started to change and adapt and grow, when I said, I want more, we put the bottle down. One decision, stop drinking. And the spider web of effects from that was unreal, because once you stop drinking for 60 days, you get a totally clear mind and you can start executing and doing things that you believe to be true to yourself. Again, things like addiction. Oh, it's so hard to quit. It's this, it's that. These are all stories that were told to us, shit that we believe about that. Everything that's been told to us is essentially backwards, and it's been told to hold you back, right? And again, am I blaming somebody here? No. Because at the end of the day, the person that created these barriers that you have to break through were you. In other words, somewhere, sometime, in some realm, you set up the rules to the video game that you're currently playing. And when you can fully embrace that ideology and you can start expanding upon that inside your head, you can see growth patterns. And you can see that, okay, I see, I'm here to do this. It all clicked out. It all clicked out for me. Again, the best thing I ever did was quitting drinking. It's just that simple. Because all the other things that you did that were like screwing things up were a result of the booze. The decisions you made, the way you felt about yourself, the how you interacted with the world because of how you felt about yourself. All of this stuff was shockingly connected with your choices made while being locked into the system, essentially. I don't know. I could prattle on for hours and hours and hours about that, but we're up to about 25 minutes now. So this was actually a lot of fun. I will go deeper into a lot of these topics too, and I will probably do more lives, just general talking with the audience lives. Maybe we'll record some, get some on the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, if you aren't following the show, please do. TheMentalMasteryAlliance.com, or anywhere you get your podcast, just Google The Mental Mastery Alliance. And again, how I started the show was, at one point we were the bad guy. We were the conspiracy theorist. We were the one shaking the tree. But the tree's been shook now, and a lot of the nuts have fallen out. And a lot of people are talking and are creating and are understanding that there is no good or bad guy. Oh, I was talking about Donald Trump earlier. Where I was going with the Donald Trump thing was, you'll see a lot of people like, he's so filled with hate, he's this, he's that, you're a piece of shit for supporting Donald Trump. And isn't it the funny thing that somebody could just be like, oh, I don't really care for Biden, he can't form a sentence, so I don't want to follow him. But if you like Trump, the anti-Trump people are filled with hate, right? The pro-inclusivity people are filled with hate for anyone who doesn't want to be inclusive. If you don't do it the way I do it, you're a piece of shit. This is the inclusive side of things. So you're looking at one side causing and creating war all over the place. One side is ignorant and arrogant. The higher you go in your own personal journey, the more you vibrate on a different frequency, the higher you vibrate, the less time you have for stupidity. And one of the greatest quotes, I always screw this up, but one of the greatest quotes is, in the second, third, and fourth dimension, it's competition. And in the fifth dimension, it's collaboration. Once you get yourself to a position in life where you're content with who you are, your actions indicatively change. You are no longer in competition with everybody, and you literally want to work with as many people as you can to collaborate on as many ideas as you can, to find out as much as you can about absolutely everything, because this world truly is stunningly beautiful once you allow it to be. Ladies and gentlemen, in the infamous words of Red Green, keep your stick on the ice.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast. Stay connected with us directly through the mentalmasteryalliance.com. You can also join the discussion on Instagram at instagram.com/the Mental Mastery Alliance. Let the team know you're listening by using the hashtag TMMA or tagging us at the Mental Mastery Alliance. To have your voice heard on the show, leave a voicemail or send a text to 647-338-1265. Long-distance charges may apply. If you love us, leave us a review. If you hate us, you spend your time in weird ways, but also leave a review. Every review on iTunes tickles the algorithm, helping us grow. Until next time, unity over division. This concludes the most surreal portion of your day.
You got it, Pontiac.